Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the fifth installment of my prep and road to 2024 USPA National. Now, today was my chest day, and I had to start off with a little bit of foam rolling just to get the back nice and warm, and right after that, get in some shoulder mobility drills. So, without further ado, let's get into today's video. Now, as soon as I was done foam rolling, I got up, got on the mat, and started to do what's called the shoulder big three. These movements are by far some of the most effective movements for shoulder mobility and activation. I was dealing with a bit of a shoulder issue in the weeks heading into this workout, so incorporating these were definitely going to be a game changer in terms of my recovery. Now, I'm currently doing these with my shoulders externally rotated, which is kind of indicated by my hands being pronated. There's an arm position of this movement that I did miss, which is a T variation, so I should have had my arms out in a T position, but that's all right. I'm still getting the full effect of the movement here. Now, with my hands still pronated, I bring my arms much closer to my body to squeeze more of my trap and my rhomboid. I also get some tricep activation here. And now you're going to see me internally rotate my shoulders and bring my hands in a supinated position. We're still targeting the trap and rhomboids, just less tricep activation here. Now, your rhomboid major, minor, and your traps are major players in helping stabilize your scapula. Now, the more stable your scapula is, the better overall shoulder mobility you're going to have. So being able to target the muscles that help stabilize with those internal and external rotations are definitely key to any good shoulder mobility. Now, what sets this movement apart from just regular standing internal and external rotations is you're actually doing a lot more isolation work by taking all the muscle groups in your body out of the equation, except for the ones that you're specifically trying to target. It also takes a little bit of the load off of your spine while allowing that target muscle group to get pure activation, and it's a lot harder than just a standing external and internal rotation. But I'm speaking for myself. That's why I'm doing these with 2.5s. So I head onto the bar just to get some warm-ups in because I like to do that in between some of these other functional movements just to get a better feel of how much more I may need to do. The bar is more of a mental warm-up for me than anything. But you're going to see me get into another pronated position, but I'm not going to be grabbing the plates this time. I'm going to be doing snow angels, which I'll do by having my hands pronated at the top of my head, and as I come back down towards my butt, I'm going to internally rotate my arms by getting my hands in a supinated position. I feel these more than I feel basically everything, if you couldn't tell by the expression on my face and how hard I'm wincing as I'm actually going through this movement. But it definitely exposes a lot of the instability that I have in my entire shoulder girdle. And you definitely can't tell by the video, but I'm definitely shaking a lot while I'm doing this movement, and by the time I'm done with it, that shoulder feels hot, like they're both burning, which I'm going to assume means I was doing the movement right. I might have needed to keep my head off the mat, but I'll go back and check out some videos and see how everybody else is doing them. Now, at this point, I had already done one warm-up set at 154 pounds, so we eventually go on to slap on some blues and increase the weight a little bit, bringing us up to 242.5. The plate that you see on the bench, I was using for standing internal and external rotations, and you see me bring that big red band over so I can do some more banded shoulder exercises. But my favorite one that I end up doing a lot is what's called the pass-through stretch, where you bring that band all the way down to your lower back while pulling it apart. Now, this first set here, I'm pretty sure was not a working set. At this point, I'm still warming up, and I'm warming up nice and slow, trying to keep that eccentric as controlled as possible while keeping the flow of the movement. I'm also going flat-footed here just to help me attain maximum leg drive. I've kind of noticed that leg drive is the best for me when my feet are flat. But all in all, that set felt pretty damn good. Good enough for me to kind of go up and add some more reps. So that would bring the weight up to 264. A 20-pound jump for me is justified if I'm actually feeling really good. In today's workout, I was feeling pretty good. But this next set was definitely going to be a big indicator of how the rest of the workout was going to go.
How many, was it just you? No, there was 3 reps. Who was one? A guy who was just an athlete. Like, some guy who knows what's about it.
So that set of 5 moved probably as best as I could have anticipated. I mean, it was not fast, but it wasn't slow at the same time. Still trying to maintain a balance between good pacing on those reps, but also keeping everything nice and controlled and stable even as we start to add more weight. There is going to come a point where, slow and controlled is counterintuitive, especially as I get a lot heavier. I'm definitely going to want to be more explosive with those reps, but at this point, we're not there yet. Now, you see me bust out the massage gun just to get in my forearms a little bit. Forearms are definitely an area that I neglect a ton. I mean, there's not a ton of stuff that you can really do to get your forearms warm unless you have a massage gun or a foam roller. And I find the gun just a lot more convenient to use, especially for muscle groups like that. But if anybody can tell me another effective way to get into your biceps, triceps, and delts without a massage gun, definitely let me know. But next set, we throw 2.5 kg on, bring us up to 125 kg, which is 275.6 pounds. Not a bad set of 4, but shoulder definitely started to feel a little achy near the end, so I racked that for the last rep. My shoulder had finally gotten to a point where it felt good, so definitely didn't want to take any chances. So we decided to forego that 5th rep, increase the weight, and go for a set of 1 to 2. So we added some greens, bring us up to 140 kg, 308.6 pounds, a weight that I've hit numerous times before, but as that shoulder is continuing to heal, we want to push our limits without going too far. We don't want to be taking any chances, especially this close to prep. The name of the game right now is incremental increases. In case you missed it, no, I didn't just hit a sticking point on my second rep. I hit the safeties because they were a little too high, completely killing my momentum. So we brought them down about 2 levels just to make sure that they were proportionate with my depth. But another reason why that happened, and most importantly, outside of the safeties, was on that descent, I was a bit lopsided because that left shoulder isn't as stable as the right one. On my descent, you see the weight kind of tipping over, favoring that left shoulder a lot more because it's working a lot harder to try to stabilize the weight. So at that point, I'm tilted and it hits the safety. So to kind of mitigate that, we bring them down. But this is another reason why I've been doing that shoulder big 3 and doing it every single chest day, every single upper body day, actually, because your shoulders are the foundation of practically every movement that's not a machine. You'd be hard pressed to find any barbell, dumbbell, kettlebell movement that does not involve heavy activation of your shoulders. But because of the failure to get the 2 reps on the last set being kind of a fluke because of those safeties, we decided to still go up anyways and just try to go for a single. Not a terrible set, and probably as good as that could have moved, so at this point, we're going to call it on bench and head over to some barbell rows. So we're going to start hitting these for a set of 10, starting at 185, just focusing more on range of motion. I'm trying to maintain a good balance between keeping a good tempo, but also getting that full stretch when I get to the bottom and squeezing as best I can when I get to the top. But bent rows are definitely one of my favorite compound back movements because they kind of target everything and are even essential for making some really big back gains, particularly having strong lats. So that 185 was relatively light for a first set, so we make a decent jump up to 225, and I'm going to continue using no straps for these just to kind of test my grip a little bit. But as you can see, I'm kind of blasting through 225. Grip is still moving pretty strong, and that's been a big point of improvement that I wanted to work on in this upcoming prep. Any movement that can help increase my grip, strengthen my grip, is definitely something I want to maximize. I don't want to be overly reliant on reps until I get into heavier weight like this 275 right here. I think this is where I bust out the wraps, or at least try with no wraps. Actually, I guess not. I didn't use wraps on this set. I just decided to raw dog it and, just testing the bounds of my grip. If I can't do it, if I can't get the full 10 and the grip starts to give out, then I just bust the wraps out. No big deal. But ideally, we can improve that endurance over a long period of time. So next set, we slap some 10s on there, bringing us up to 295, and this is where I actually bust out the straps. Because I know that for a movement like bent rows that's heavily reliant on grip strength, this is where I'm going to need a little bit of assistance, especially as I get close to 300 pounds. And now we moved on to some seated military presses. And I'm on the Smith machine because The last time I did this movement on a non-Smith machine, just kind of free bar, that's where I kind of hurt my shoulder. Most military press stations that use a free bar at every gym are kind of different. I notice a lot of fitness manufacturers make these machines in a variety of different ways. Some of them are comfortable, some of them aren't. But the one at the gym that I'm currently training at, theirs is not that great. There are only two levels of safeties. One is way too high and one is way too low. So either way, you're kind of risking a little bit of injury if you're doing this movement by yourself. But on one particular day, I was training by myself. These were on the program and they were meant to be progressive overload. I was supposed to go up in the movement. So naturally, I'm going to go up in what I know my body is capable of. But at the same time, when you're doing something on a machine that's very awkward, it's not anatomically conducive to doing the movement correctly, that kind of throws off the way you can maximize the movement and also increases the risk of injury. And that's kind of what happened. I didn't get injured, but I definitely suffered a shoulder strain. A shoulder strain that lingered for weeks and just wouldn't go away until this session. This is the session where I actually started to feel kind of good with my pressing motions. And we decided, just to avoid any other type of strain, to transition over to Smith, just because the Smith would do a much better job of stabilizing the shoulder than the shoulder press station that they have there. So considering the fact that these are an accessory movement, it was kind of a no-brainer. For me, this is kind of an example of training smarter, not harder necessarily, and not putting myself in positions to potentially suffer setbacks, where if I go to another gym that has a much better shoulder press station, then I could probably do it over there. But here, I want to be able to make my workout as effective as possible. But now we're moving on to some standing overhand tricep press downs. But if you notice I said overhand, that's very specific, and there's a reason why we're doing overhand, to target a specific area of the tricep. So when we look at the tricep, it has three heads: the long head, the lateral head, and the medial head. Where your arms are positioned will determine exactly which head is primarily being targeted. So with my arms kind of low, centered towards my midline, closer to my back, we're targeting the lateral head of the tricep. Which isn't to say that the other heads aren't being targeted, because at the end of the day, this is a compound movement, but there's one head that kind of sticks out with this variation, and that's the lateral head. If we were to go underhand, then we'd be targeting that medial head, which is a much smaller portion of the tricep that isn't totally visible to everyone. But it's there, it's absolutely there, and if you want properly developed triceps, you have to target that too. Now, to wrap up this workout, we're going to finish up with some standing bicep curls. These are alternating bicep curls, which are some of my favorite bicep movements. I love the different angles that you can hit the bicep with when you're doing dumbbells. Just a lot more versatile overall. Now, the biceps are one of those movements that don't require a ton of weight to be maximized, just a good amount of intensity and a proper concentric and eccentric contraction. In other words, squeeze the shit out of them at the top and come down nice and controlled the entire way. In this movement, I try to get the dumbbell as close to my shoulder as possible, just to get a full concentric contraction there. Yes, it hurts, it burns, but that's exactly how it should feel. And you can definitely see it in my arms as they're getting more vascular with each rep, signifying that I'm definitely doing the movement correctly, because the blood is definitely flowing. Biceps have always been one of my stronger muscle groups genetically, and it's definitely a shame if I don't maximize them. And I'm definitely guilty of doing that in the past, because for me, they've never really struggled to grow. And even if I'm not training hypertrophy, which I'm not, as long as I give my biceps just a little bit of love, they will definitely grow. And I've also been blessed with good vascularity, which is definitely something I can't take for granted. Not everybody has vascularity. I just assumed that, it was a thing for everybody. And I still remember getting my very first bicep vein that first summer I started working out. And I just assumed that was it. I thought that was the only one I was ever going to have. I was happy with that. And as I've gotten more muscular, as I've gotten leaner, I see more veins all throughout different muscle groups. So definitely got to shout out my ancestors for that. But that's it for today's workout. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.